Welcome back to my kitchen. So today we are going to bake what I call husband catchers. I lovingly refer to them as husband catchers because I jokingly kind of think that my husband married me because of these cookies. So lucky for him, I had other skills to back up these cookies with. I wasn't just a one-trick pony and only could make chocolate chip cookies. But these cookies are the tried and true gold standard of chocolate chip cookies in our home. So what I wanted to talk about today is the process of baking. Baking is chemistry. So if you in high school didn't do great at chemistry, my guess is you probably have trouble baking, because if you are cavalier in your measuring when you're baking, your results are going to be substandard. So when a recipe tells you you need 4 cups of flour, it's not 4-ish, it's 4. If you're using a scale, a kitchen scale, you're going to get the most precise measurements. I don't typically, unless it's a fussy recipe, use a digital scale for measuring ingredients, but I am careful in my measurements. So I want to talk to you about when you're baking and you want good results, slow down and actually measure everything according to what the recipe calls for, carefully, not leaving gaps at the top of measuring cups, measuring spoons, making sure that you're following the measurements precisely. Then your end result will be something that you are much happier with, and you might find that you're a better baker if you just are paying more attention to how you're measuring your ingredients. Today, I'm going to also talk about time management. It's close to Christmas at this point. Our schedules are packed full, and maybe you have a Christmas party to go to and you volunteered to make some baked goods like I have for our community group at church. We're having a fellowship this weekend and I'm taking some, you guessed it, cookies, but I want to make 2 types of cookies with the same batter. So I'm going to take my base chocolate chip cookie recipe, make a double batch and separate it and put chocolate chips in one, actually chocolate chunks today. And in the other half of the batter, I'm going to use white chocolate chips or white chips and dried cherries. You could use dried cranberries. I love the dried cherries. With the same amount of effort, you're going to make 1 large batch of dough, separate it. You'll have 2 completely different end results, and it will look like you spent much more time than you actually did. So let's get started. When you're making a cookie batter, you'll notice that the recipe will tell you to cream together your butter or shortening with the sugars. This is an important step, and again, remember we're doing chemistry, so there are chemical processes taking place, the release of moisture, the interaction of ingredients, and it needs to be done in the proper order to get the result that you're looking for. So recipes aren't just written to be done willy-nilly. Do it as described and your results will be better. So we're going to start with, as I mentioned, this is a double batch of chocolate chip cookie batter. We're going to start with 4 soft sticks of margarine. Now, I realize margarine is not the healthiest option, neither are cookies. So we're gonna start with that. Whatever shortening you're using, you're going to get different results. If you were to trade the margarine for butter, your end result on these cookies is going to be a different texture because the water content in butter is different, the way the fat molecules react, and the end product, the end result will be different than the margarine will give you. I prefer margarine, and particularly Blue Bonnet is the brand that I typically use. The soft result in these cookies, I always joke life is too short to eat crunchy cookies. I want a chewy, soft cookie that once it's cooled, it still remains soft. So if that is your desired result, then follow this recipe as written and you'll be one step closer to what you're looking for. So we have our 4 sticks of soft margarine. And if you need to speed that up in the microwave, make sure that you don't liquefy your margarine. So be very careful to just get it soft. Best practice is to leave it at room temperature for a few hours for it to become room temp, as opposed to, you don't want it to be liquid of any type. You want it to still have some have form. So we're going to that add, I've mentioned before, but we're going to talk about it again. When you're measuring brown sugar, make sure you have packed it into your cup. That's how brown sugar measurement is assumed to be measured in your recipe. So if you have a loosely just kind of thrown in, cup of brown sugar, it's not going to be the right measurement. So again, think chemistry, think accuracy, and just stay focused long enough to do exactly as described. So I had 1 cup. We're adding our 2nd cup of brown sugar. We have white sugar. I've already measured. You don't need to see me do all that. Going to work on mixing that up a little bit, and we'll be right back. Now we're going to add our eggs, and I know I've mentioned this before, but if you give your egg a good smart tap on the counter, you may get a little egg white between your counter and your bowl, but you're going to have a much cleaner break with your egg going into the bowl, with far fewer chances of egg shards falling in as well. We don't want bits of eggshell in the cookie dough. I'd rather wipe up a little bit of egg white from the counter than to have to fish out and potentially miss a piece of egg shell in the bowl. I want to talk a little bit about ingredients. Ingredients matter. If you're using pure vanilla extract, it is going to be a much better end product than imitation. So if you are looking for the best results for your baked goods, invest in some quality ingredients. You're not using it all the time, so it's a good investment to have some pure vanilla extract. If you want to make your own, you can look that up. It's super easy. I've done it myself and given it as Christmas gifts. Get a nice little swing cap bottle, fill the bottle with vodka, add whole vanilla beans and let it sit for, 4 to 6 weeks. Shake that up and you're going to have beautiful pure vanilla extract. So you can home make it if you would like to, save money that way. But vanilla extract, pure vanilla extract will give you the best flavor in your baked goods. And we're going for highest quality, best results. Why go to all the trouble if it's going to be marginal? So good vanilla will make a big difference. We have 2 tablespoons going into the batter, as well as our 3 eggs. Now we're going to begin adding our dry ingredients to our completely thoroughly mixed butter, margarine, sugars, vanilla, and eggs. So I have our salt measurement already measured, and remember, we don't measure our salt directly over our vessel. We measure it over the sink, over a cup that you can empty out, because almost always I overshoot. And again, chemistry, we don't want too much of any ingredient that's going to throw off the balance, and especially the flavor of these delicious cookies. I want to show you what it means to measure appropriately though, using the baking soda can, because it has a nice leveler. When it calls for, this recipe calls for 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. And if I'm doing chemistry, which I am because I'm baking, you want it to go all the way completely flat. You don't want to see any gaps in the edge of the spoon, you want full to the brim, leveled off. That is a teaspoon and a half. I've watched others, I've observed people baking, and they just kind of dip their spoon in and whatever comes out goes in. You got big gaps. That is not going to be an appropriate amount. You must measure accurately. Also, flour. It's an important detail to loosen your flour, because you know it's in this bag. You've rolled the paper down, you've packed this flour in here. You want the right measurement, so you need to fluff the flour. I've found it's usually sufficient to take my measuring cup and kind of dig it around, fluff up the flour where I'm going to be scooping the flour out and lift up. I do have a spoon that I was going to use, but I'm not going to do that right now. So lift it up and you'll see I have way more than I need. But I'm going to take my leveling tool. You can use the back of a butter knife if it's completely straight, and just level off gently your flour all the way to the edges so that I don't have any, and I have a clear measuring cup so I can see if there are any gaps, any pockets of air that I need to kind of coax the flour down into, and then just level it off. Whoops, I'll wipe that up. So level that off. I have a completely full 1 cup measure. You can see there aren't any big air pockets in there. I have 5 cups of flour here. This is our 6th cup. It's really important to measure your flour into a separate bowl. Have you ever been, you know, like I'm on cup number 4, somebody talks to you and you're like, was that 4 or 5? What was that? So it's good practice to measure your flour into a separate bowl. That way, if you need to, you can pour it back in and start over if you get disrupted and you can't remember what measurement you were on. So we have fully incorporated our dry ingredients into our sugar margarine mixture, and we have a beautiful base dough for the 2 types of cookies that we're going to make today. And you know somebody is gonna love to lick that, but we're not quite there yet. I'm going to add our chocolate chunks and give that a mix. Here we have our chocolate chunk cookies, and we have the white chip and dried cherries. And this is how I prove my love for my husband. Every time I make chocolate chip cookies, I make sure to put a couple of dough balls aside for him in the freezer. This is just proof that I love him, and he'll immediately go to the freezer to check and see if they're there, knowing that I've made these. We're going to drop 5 scoops full onto a very large sheet pan, because we want to get this done as quickly as and efficiently as possible. We have other things to do, but we're going to go ahead and make our dough balls, and then I will be back. Batch number 1 is going in. So we'll check in 9 or so minutes, and I always set my timer under the required baking time and check in on whatever is in the oven. It is imperative that you don't go to the maximum number without checking on them, because every oven bakes slightly differently. So you need to keep an eye and let it get up to done. Don't go check it when it's past done, because you can't undo overcooked. So my timer has just gone off at 9 minutes. I'm going to show you really quickly how beautiful they are, but they're still very blonde. So we're gonna put them in for another minute and then check back. We're going back. Oh, they look fantastic. These guys ended up going 11 minutes. I want you to take a look. The edges are ever so light brown. The centers are formed. They're not doughy looking or wet. Now we're going to let these guys just rest on the cooling rack for 3 to 5 minutes. Just let them firm up a little bit, and then we're going to remove them from the sheet, which will definitely stop their cooking because the sheet obviously is hot. They continue to cook. If you leave them on the sheet too long, first of all, they're harder to get off the cookie sheet once they've cooled, and you've probably gone past the done point that you wanted. So let them sit for a few minutes, not too long, and get them off, put them on the cooling rack, and then set them aside and go for your next batch. One detail, when you are making your cookie dough balls, you want them to be uniform in size. If you have varying sizes of dough, they're going to, one is going to cook, a smaller one is going to cook more quickly than a larger one. So you're not going to have the same results across your entire pan of cookies. So again, we're talking about being precise and doing our best to make sure everything we are doing in the process is going to yield the best results. So you actually can be a good baker. It might just be getting rid of some of your habits that don't contribute well to appropriate chemistry. Here they are, the final result. White chocolate cherry, chocolate chip. All told, we have about 7 dozen cookies to enjoy. They do freeze beautifully, so once they are completely cool, put them in a Ziploc freezer bag, put them in the freezer, and take them out a couple of hours before you need to serve them. You will be glad you did. Thanks for joining me.